What does SaaS mean? It stands for Software as a Service. Digital tools that you use directly from the internet, without installing anything. SaaS-style animations explain these products clearly and visually. In just a few seconds, they show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful, all with design, movement, and storytelling.
Hi everyone. In this After Effects lesson, we're going to learn how to create a SaaS-style animation like this one. So, if you like motion graphics and want to learn professional animation techniques that you can then apply to your own projects, stick around and watch the tutorial until the end, because I'm going to explain everything step by step and from scratch. If you'd like to support the channel, in addition to your likes, you can also become a member of the Motion Graphics Zone on Patreon. There I share all the projects and materials I use in my tutorials, among other things, so you can continue practicing and improving your motion design skills. I've included the link in the description if you'd like to check it out. The first thing I'm going to do is import the files. Later on, I'll probably need some more, but for now, I'm going to import these. Well, I don't need the script file, and I'll import this Illustrator file separately later. By the way, if you like documentary-style editing, my course is now available. But it's not just a course in which I show you how to animate a sequence in After Effects and that's it, but I show you the entire procedure that I followed to create this animation. From the initial idea to the final render, going through each and every phase of the creative process. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. Again, File, Import. And now, I'm going to import this Illustrator file, which, since it's separated into layers, we have to import separately as a composition and document size. That's fine. This folder will be for the compositions, and that way we have everything well organized from the beginning. I'm going to put the Illustrator files in the Assets folder. Okay, with this folder selected, let's create the first composition, which will be called Animation. I'm going to make it 1920 by 1080, but you can set the dimensions you prefer. 30 frames per second and 30 seconds duration is plenty. With the text tool, I'm going to write the first sentence. I'm going to leave the size of this text layer at 80. And for the word SaaS, I'm going to set it to 100. And I'm also going to change its color. The font I'm using is called Inter in its bold variant with these settings. Now we can center the anchor point and center it in the viewport. And we're going to add a small animation to this text layer. We come here to Animate, set the opacity, and we're also going to add the position. On the y-axis, we move it upwards. We'll set it to -200, the opacity to 0. And now we're going to open the range selector to create the animation. At the beginning of the timeline, we select a keyframe in the offset and set it to -100. And now, at the 1 second mark, we're going to set it to 100. We have this animation, but it doesn't look right, so we have to make some more adjustments. Here in Advanced, where it says Square, we're going to change it to Ramp Up, so the text falls from the top. We'll set Ease High to 20 and Ease Low to 100. And look, now we have a really cool text animation. If you want to apply this animation to another text layer and don't want to repeat the process every time, we can save this animation as a preset. It's very easy. We select the animator and go here to Animation, Save Animation Preset. Here we give it a name and that's it. Text falls from the top. We click Save and that's it. Look, I'm going to delete the animator to check. I go to the beginning of the timeline, and here to Effects and Presets. And here, I'm going to type Text Falls from the Top, which is the one we just saved. We apply it to the layer, and that's it. We have the animation here. So, that's how you save presets. Very easy. We're going to position ourselves here at the last keyframe, and we're going to cut this text layer right at that point. Now, what I want to do is separate each of these words into different layers. I'm going to do this with a script called Text Exploder. Which is a script that saves a lot of time for this type of animation and isn't very expensive either. But if you don't have it installed, you can also do it manually. Look, we're going to name this layer, for example, Reference, lower its opacity, and make a copy. Here, we'll set the opacity to 100% and write, for example, what. All we have to do is adjust it to our reference layer. We make another copy and write does here. And we have to do this with all the words in our sentence. I'm going to delete these, set the opacity back to 100%, and use the script to separate each word into a different layer. We can do this by letters or words. For now, I'm going to do it in words. We click Apply, and that's it. I'm going to hide this one here. And notice, I already have each word on a different layer. Now for Shahs, what I'm going to do is separate the letters. So I select Characters and click Apply. Okay, I'm going to put all of these up here and also change their colors to differentiate them. And I'm going to hide this one. Or just delete it. Here they are. Being here at this point, we select the 4 and mark a keyframe in position. Now we're going to move forward to the 2-second mark. And we're going to move them to the right. Until that S here is further to the right than this question mark. More or less around there. And when these letters reappear, that's when they reveal the next phrase. So let's write it. I'm going to change its color so I don't get confused. And I'm also going to center it in view. I'm going to use this one as a reference. I'm going to lower the opacity and make a copy. And now for this copy, well, I'm going to keep only these 2 layers to see it better. I'm going to set the opacity of this copy to 100%. And again, I'm going to separate this text layer into words. If we want, we can click on this option to delete the original layer and leave us with just the separate layers. Okay, what I'm going to do with this one is the following. I'm going to remove the S from this one here, and I'm going to adjust the rest of the word here using our reference layer. I'm going to remove the A from this one, and I'm going to leave it adjusted around here. I'm going to delete this A directly because we already have this one, which is the one that's going to be placed in that position. I'm going to delete the S from this service layer and leave it adjusted around here. It doesn't need to be perfect. Now we can make these layers visible again. and we're going to skip to 320. And now, one by one, we're going to put them in their place. First, this S over there. Now the A. The other A. And this S. Now we're going to smooth all these keyframes with F9 and go into the graph editor to shape the curve a bit. If it doesn't look like this, you need to have the velocity graph enabled. We're going to set these handles between 60 and 65. We're going to set the influence of these here between 80 and 85, more or less. We'll set these to 100, and here we'll put, well, 40 or 45, around there. So we have this animation. I'm going to keep only these letters. If we don't want them all to move at the same time, we can add a little offset. Let's select these keyframes. Move them 2 squares to the right, 1 and 2. These ones too, 1 and 2. And these ones as well. I think the animation looks much better this way. We can delete this reference layer. Okay, perfect. The next thing we're going to do is make each of these letters reveal its respective word. With no layers selected, we'll use the pen tool to create a shape like this. We'll outline the letter S and cover the word software here. Let's rename the layer to avoid confusion. Software matte, for example. Now we'll select the shape layer, the word software, and the letter S, all three. We'll place them up here and change their colors. To make this shape follow the animation of this letter, while it's here, we'll use the Pick Whip tool to parent it to the S, which is the one with the animation. Now we need to make the word software alpha matte of the shape layer. If the track matte doesn't appear, press F4 to display it, and then, using the Pick Whip tool, we'll parent it to this layer. There it is. All we have to do is move the letter S over it. We'll do the same with this A. We need to position ourselves here at the last keyframe, and without selecting any layers, we're going to create a shape like this. We'll rename it S Matte. We select the shape, the letter S, and also the letter A. And to verify that all three are selected, we deactivate the solo icon. Now we're going to put all these layers together. We're also going to change their colors and repeat the same process as before. We'll parent the shape layer to the letter A, which is the one with the animation. And now we'll make the letter S the alpha matte of the shape. We'll move this over it. Okay, let's see how it looks. We'll do the same with this service layer. First, we create a shape like this and rename it SMAT2. We select the shape, the word service, which is the one behind it, and also the letter S. And to verify that they're selected, we deactivate the solo icon. Okay, now we're going to put all these together. Same process, we select the shape, and with the pick whip of the parent link, we parent it to the letter S, which is the one with the animation. And we make the word service a mat alpha. We just have to move this letter over it, and that's it. Okay, now we're going to deactivate the icon to see all layers. Because we're almost done with this animation, but we still need to do a couple of things. This word that you see here in the background, I want it to disappear when this letter S moves over it. So I'm going to select it and make it a mat alpha of this shape. There you can see it move over it, and this word disappears. And on the return journey is when the next one should appear. But notice that both are still visible, so right here, at this point, we're going to cut this layer so that on the return journey, only this one is visible. Right here, where we cut this one, we're going to select this text layer that says service and cut it right there so that it's not visible here at the beginning. Okay, perfect. We have to do the same with these two. We select them and make them the alpha mat of the shape, which is related to this S, which is this one here. So, with these two layers selected, we use the pick whip tool and parent them to this shape. But we need to make these layers alpha inverted mat, so we click on this icon. Notice that you can see a little bit of the text layer in the background, so we're going to select the shape. And with the pen tool, we're going to move these 2 points slightly. Perfect. Okay, look at this cool animation we've created. Now we're going to give these 3 words the same color as this one here. So we select it, and with the eyedropper tool, we click on this color. With Ctrl+A, we select all the layers, press F4, and convert them all to 3D by clicking on this icon. Now with a right-click, we're going to create a camera. This one will be 50 millimeters and 1 node. Again, right-click, New, Null Object. We convert it to 3D and parent the camera to it. Starting at the beginning of the timeline, we expand the position and mark a keyframe. We advance to 2.20 seconds. Here, we'll set a value of -500. And here at the beginning, we'll move the camera backward. We'll set it to -2500. We smooth the keyframes and shape the curve so that it starts very fast and gradually slows down. At this last keyframe, we duplicate the null frame, press U, and delete them. We parent the previous null frame to the new one, and this animation will start a little earlier. We go to 1.25 seconds. Right here, we mark a keyframe, and now we'll advance to 4.10 seconds. Here, we'll move the camera forward. We set a value of 750, smooth the keyframes, and add a little influence to the curve. We'll set this one to 50, and this other one to 90%. Let's see how it looks. If we want, we can close the script now. We go to the last keyframe, duplicate the null one, and delete these. We have to parent the previous one to this one. The next animation will start at the 4-second mark. We select a keyframe and advance to the 6-second mark. Here we're going to move the camera backward. We'll set it to -750 on the Z-axis. We smooth the keyframes and we'll set their influence to 100%. We'll leave this one as it is by default. In this part of the animation where those strokes appeared that crossed each other and led into the next scene, we'll use the pen tool with no layer selected to make a stroke like this. We remove the fill, and for now, we'll give it a stroke with a thickness of 5 pixels. We have to make this layer 3D. We centered the anchor point and centered it in view as well. And obviously, since it's a 3D layer, it's reacting to camera movement. But this time, what I want is for it to remain static in that position, even though it's 3D. So what I'm going to do is relate it to the pick whip on this null. Then, in this part where the animation occurs between these two keyframes, this stroke will be stationary, which is exactly what I want. Now we're going to position it correctly. If we set it to 540 here, it will stay right here, on this edge of the composition, but I don't want it to be visible, so I'm going to move it down a little. I'll set it to 550. We make a copy, and we move this one up. Here we'll set it to -550. Another copy. For now, I'm going to remove the parent link from this one. Press Ctrl plus Home to center it in view, and I'll set the Z rotation to 90 degrees so it stays vertical. Now we can parent it to the null point again, and we'll move this one to the left. Press P, and here we'll enter -970. Another copy. We'll move this one to the right, And here we'll enter a value of 970. And now, with all the strokes positioned, we'll hover over this keyframe. We select the 4 layers and mark a position. And here, in this section, we'll move them all toward the center so they intersect. This one, for example, will move upwards. As always, we'll enter the exact value. We move this one downwards. Here, we enter 180. We'll move this one to the right to a value of 270. And this one to the left. Here, we'll enter minus 270. So, we have this animation. Now, double-click the rectangle tool and give it a color. Rename the layer and convert it to 3D. Then, press Ctrl plus Home to center it in the view. I'm going to lower the opacity a bit to see what we're doing better. Look, I don't want this layer to react to camera movement either. So while we're here, we'll use Pickwhip to parent it to null. Okay, perfect. Now, we'll go here, expand the scale, and deactivate this chain so we can move the values separately. Basically, what I want to do is adjust the scale and width of this layer, here with the strokes. If we hold down the Control key and press the arrow keys, we can do this much more precisely. Without moving from here, we'll select a keyframe and go to the 6-second mark. Here, we'll continue modifying the scale until we create a shape similar to the one formed by the strokes. Notice that when we go below 0, the scale is being inverted. We need to adjust it roughly to match the scale of the stroke. The width should be adjusted as well. That should work. We check that they match the animation of the strokes, and we smooth all these keyframes. We also need to set the influence to 100% for these handles. Look, this green curve, which corresponds to the Y scale, hasn't moved because we've unlinked the dimensions, but that's okay. We select this curve and also set its influence to 100%. If we want, we can now set the opacity to maximum. And I'm going to move this layer down here. The next thing I want to do is use it as a matte alpha, so that the text in this part is no longer visible. So I'm going to go here to the 4-second mark and select all the text layers in this phrase, which are the ones with a T in front of them. Without moving from here, I'm going to press Ctrl plus Shift plus D to cut the layers there, and I'm going to put them up here. And I'm also going to change their colors to differentiate them. Now all we have to do is, using the Track Matte Pick Whip, parent all these text layers to the shape we just animated. Let's see how it looks. Okay, that's perfect. The thing is, I don't want the text to be visible in this part here anymore. So I'm going to position myself more or less around this frame where the text is still slightly visible here in the background. Well, in the next frame, I'm going to cut all the layers right at this point. And without moving from here, I'm also going to cut this shape layer. But I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to make it visible again, so it's visible here in this part. Okay, that looks great. If we wanted to do another camera animation and parent the previous null to the new one, notice, if I move these values here, no element will move because they're all related to this null. So we're going to do it another way. We're going to use this null for the next movement. We'll position ourselves here at 520 and mark a keyframe. Now we'll move forward to 725. And here on the Z-axis, we'll move the camera backward. We'll set it to minus 1,500. We'll smooth the keyframes. Right-click, select Keyframe Velocity, and here we'll set the influence to 70%. From this file, I have here with the Google interface. I'm going to create a new composition. I'll save this in its folder. And here, with no layers selected, I'll double-click on the rectangle tool. And here I'll set the corner roundness to 200. Now we'll make this interface layer a matte alpha of this shape, so that the rounded edges are visible. We go back to the animation composition, and here we'll bring in the interface layer. We'll place it up here and convert it to 3D, and being here at the last keyframe, we'll center it in view with Ctrl plus Home. We're going to lower the scale quite a bit as it's very large. I'll leave it around here. As I always say, I use these values and this timing because, after doing some testing, they've worked best for me. But you can try different ones if you want. Okay, we're going to position this interface layer correctly. I'll set it to 1,415 here. And now I'm going to move it down. Here I'll set it to, for example, 815, and I'm going to mark a keyframe at this position. And above this keyframe, I'm going to select the interface again and move it down until it's no longer visible in the composition. I'll set it to 1,645 here. We'll smooth the keyframes. right-click, keyframe velocity, and we'll also set the influence to 70% so that it matches this camera movement. There it is. We're going to cut all these stroke layers and this shape layer here at this point. We'll move the nulls in the camera above them. And that's how we'll start organizing our project. Let's preview everything and see how it looks. Okay, this looks special. We're going to place this interface composition below this keyframe. And these, we have to put them right here at the beginning. I just realized something. Earlier, when I modified the values of this null to explain something, I accidentally misaligned the camera a little. Notice that it doesn't perfectly align with the edges of the composition. If this is 1920 by 1080, these values should be 960 and 540. I'll fix this very easily. I'm going to hover over this keyframe and select both of them. Now, in X, I'm going to set it to 960, and in Y, 540. And now everything is perfectly centered. And from here, we continue. I'm going to go into the Digital Tools composition, and this layer here, which is the one with this gear, I'm going to right-click and convert it to shapes. Look here where the anchor point is, so I'm going to center it. And here for the rotation, I'm going to write an expression. We press the Alt key and click on the clock. Here we're going to write time times 150, so it rotates clockwise continuously. We make a copy and place it around here. Another copy. To prevent them all from rotating in the same direction, I'll give this one a negative expression. Let's go back to the animation composition. And we're going to place this digital tool on top of the shape mat. It also needs to start right here at this point. I'm going to put this viewport here in left view. And now I'm going to go here to this keyframe. For now, I'm going to remove the parent link from this layer to see its z-axis value, which is exactly minus 750. Then, I'm going to convert this composition to 3D and also set it to minus 750 here, so it stays in the same place as this shape. And let's not forget to parent it to null again. We have to make this composition the alpha mat of the shape. we make it visible again, and the scale and position should be adjusted. Okay, perfect. Look, here's something. Even though the illustration is behind these lines, I'm seeing it in front. That's because on the z-axis, it's further forward than these lines. Notice, here's the composition, and here are the lines. So we're seeing the illustration first. And even if we put it on top, we'll still see the lines behind it. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to right-click and create an adjustment layer. I'm going to place this right above the digital tools composition. And the problem will be solved automatically. I've explained this adjustment layer thing in some tutorials, but I'll explain it very quickly. What it does is separate, so to speak, the 3D space into two different ones. Supposedly, all the layers above the adjustment layer are in one 3D space, and all the ones below are in a different one. And although they all react to camera movement, they don't interact with each other. We're going to cut this one right here at this point. We select this null and duplicate it. We delete the keyframes from this one and we parent the previous null to this one. Now we're going to go to 7:05. We select a keyframe and advance to 9 o'clock. Here we're going to animate the x-axis. We'll set a value of 2680. We smooth the keyframes. Right-click, keyframe velocity, and set the influence to 70%. In this part here, when the animation of this null happens, I'm going to do a small animation on the paths so they aren't visible in the next scene. So I'm going to select, for example, this one and apply the trim paths effect. I'm going to mark a keyframe in Start, and right below this keyframe, I'm going to set its value to 100. We'll smooth the keyframes and also set the influence to 70. With Ctrl+C, we'll copy the effect and paste it to the rest of the strokes. Ctrl+V. We'll go to the Compositions folder and create another one called Installing. This will be 2500 by 1000 pixels. And we'll leave everything else as is. With the pen tool, I'm going to create a stroke like this and increase its thickness quite a bit. I'll set it to, for example, 305. We'll center the anchor point and center it in the viewport as well. And here, in the stroke options, we'll set the line cap to round cap. Well, I think I'll make it a little narrower. Something like that. And this one over there. With Ctrl+D, I'm going to duplicate the stroke. I'm going to change the color of this one and make it a little narrower. I'll leave it at 300 or a little less, 260. I'm going to add the trim path effect to this one and add a small animation. Here I'll set it to 0, and a little further on I'll set it to 100. And now, inside here, I'm going to write some text. I'll center the anchor point and leave it nicely centered. And I'm going to make this text a little bigger. With Ctrl+D, I'm going to make a copy, and this copy will be black, or almost black. Okay, now we have to make it a matte alpha of the stroke. We'll make it visible again. And we're also going to make this white text a matte alpha of this stroke, but the inverted alpha matte. Well, what I'm going to do is change the color of the text. This one will be almost black, and this one here will be white. And look at this cool effect. With the text tool, I'm going to put a 10 here, for example. And now here, in source text, with the Alt key pressed, I'm going to click on the clock, and we're going to link this pick whip to the percentage of the trim paths animation. This will show us exactly the same percentage as the animation. But to avoid so many decimal places, here at the beginning we're going to write math.round. We delete this parenthesis, and here at the end we put another one. Now it looks perfect. If we want to put the percentage symbol here on the right, at the end of the expression we'll write plus quotation marks. And what we put inside the quotation marks is what will appear here. But this time, I'm going to put the percentage symbol. It's that easy. I'm going to right align this text. I like it this way, so I'm going to leave it positioned here. If we want it to go faster or slower, we can put this keyframe wherever we want. I'm going back to the animation composition, and here I'm going to bring in this installing composition that we just made. I'm going to convert it to 3D, and with Ctrl+Home, I'm going to center it in the viewport. But I'm going to send this composition backward. I'm going to set the Z-axis to -500. And I'm also going to lower the scale a bit, more or less. The thing is, at this point, I've already finished the animation, so I'm going to set this composition to start from this keyframe. We're going to cut this layer of strokes at this point. And all these others as well. Let's preview everything and see how it's coming along. I'm also going to cut all these layers here, and that way we'll keep our project nice and clean. One thing I want to do is animate these letters. If you remember at the beginning, we gave each of them a 2-frame offset so that this animation would have much more flow. Okay, but I'm going to put all these last keyframes in line. We're going to go here to the last keyframe, duplicate the null, and delete these. We'll parent the previous null to the new one. And this animation is going to start at 8:15. We mark a keyframe in advance to 11:10. Here, we're going to continue moving the camera forward on the z-axis. We set a value of 2,500, smooth the keyframes, and give the curve this shape. We're going to set the influence to 100% for this one and to 60% for this one. And right here, at the highest point of this curve, where the animation is fastest, is where we're going to make the cut transition. If it doesn't line up perfectly, we can move this handle a little to the left. Without moving from here, I'm going to place a marker, and I'm going to cut these two compositions right at this point. Now I'm going to write the following text. We'll go here to the last keyframe and convert the text layer to 3D. Now we'll center the anchor point and center it in the viewport as well. We're going to place this one down here, and we have to cut it here, where the transition will be. To this text layer, we're going to apply an effect that we have here in the presets called Blinking Cursor Typewriter Console. For this effect to look like this, we need to have the text centered. If you don't see the paragraph options, you have to go to Window, Paragraph, and center it. The only thing left is to adjust the timing of these keyframes according to our audio. Pressing the L key twice will display the audio waveforms. And now, let's listen to it.
SaaS style animations explain. SaaS style animations. SaaS style animations explain. SaaS style animations.
So that the transition doesn't look completely empty, I'm going to move these keyframes to the left so that the text starts to become visible.
SaaS style animations explain these.
Okay, that's perfect.
SaaS style animations explain. SaaS style animations explain.
For now, I'll leave the audio muted, and I'll duplicate the null. Press U, delete these, and parent the original to the new one. This animation will start here at 10:10. We'll select a keyframe, and on top of it, we'll continue moving the camera forward. Now we'll set a value of 3,500 on the Z-axis. We'll move forward to 12:10 and set it to 5,000. We'll smooth all these keyframes and give the curve this shape. We're going to focus all the animation's force right here in this area. If we want, we can also place a marker here. And that way we have the cut transitions located. I'm going to increase the scale of this text a little. And maybe also move it back a bit on the Z-axis. Okay, there it looks perfect. We have to cut it right here at this point. And now I'm going to bring in a file I have here called UI screen. Which starts here where the cut transition marker is. And we also have to convert it to 3D. With Control plus Home, we center it in the viewport. You can't see it because it's black, so I'm going to add a fill effect. For now, I'm not going to worry about the colors. I'll do that later, at the end, when I have the animation finished. Okay, this UI screen file, we're going to center it in the viewport, here at the last keyframe. Okay, now it's much better. And I'm also going to make some adjustments. I'm going to reduce the scale to 90%. And here, on the Z-axis, I'm going to move it back a little. I'm going to set its value to 3,950. This is where the eye animation we saw in the example will go. What I'm going to do now is add a background layer, so it's not always black. Right-click, New Solid. And this will be for the background. For now, we'll make it a fairly dark color, and we'll move this layer to the very bottom. This color will stay here, although, as I said before, when the animation is finished, we'll add an animated gradient. We'll go here to the first marker of the transition and cut the text layer there. I'm going to paint this part white, or almost white. I'll go to the next marker and cut the background layer again right there. Now I'm going to duplicate this and bring it to the right. Let's do a preview. For the next animation, we're going to use, for example, this null. We're going to move to the 14-second mark, and here, to give this animation a bit of continuity, we're going to move the camera forward slightly. We'll set it to 450 here. Now we're going to position it at to 1310, and right there, we mark a keyframe to maintain the position. And here, we're going to move to 1510. We're going to continue moving the camera forward on the Z-axis. We'll set it to a value of 8080. We smooth these two. Right-click, select Keyframe Velocity, and set the influence to 75. And here, in this part, where the camera movement is a little slower, is where the eye animation will be. We select the ellipse tool and double-click. No stroke and a white or almost white fill. We're going to rename this white. And in the ellipse options, under ellipse path 1, we'll double-click and convert it to a Bezier. And with the Convert Vertex tool, we'll click on this point and then on this one. And basically, we now have the shape of the eye. Press the S key and set the scale to 80. I'm going to activate the grid to use as a guide. And again, with the ellipse tool, and without any layers selected, I'm going to create a shape like this. I'm going to give it a fairly dark gray color. We'll call this one black. We need to center the anchor point and center it in the viewport. And now, we're going to create a mask for this shape. But if I wanted to do it directly, I couldn't. What would happen is that I would create another shape inside this one. So I'm going to delete this one. And to create a mask for a shape layer, we need to have this icon activated. Now I'm going to position myself here in the center and create a mask like this. We need to hold down the Control and Shift keys to draw a perfect circle. We're going to put this mask in subtract mode. And without touching anything, we're going to make another smaller circle over here. Okay, perfect. Now let's animate the eye. For now, I'm not going to worry about the timing. I'll do it, for example, starting with this part. We mark a keyframe in position. We count 20 forwards and move the eye like this. I'm going to keep only these 2 layers to see it better. Now we're going to advance 30 frames. And I'm going to move it to the right. 10, 20. And I'm going to copy and paste this first keyframe so that it stays in its initial position. We smooth everything, right-click, keyframe velocity, and here we set the influence to 60%. Okay, perfect. What we still need to do now is make it a matte alpha of this shape so that it doesn't show outside. So we select this layer, and with the pick whip from the track mats, we parent it to this one. And we make it visible again. Well, maybe here I'll move it a little more upwards. And here a little more still. Okay, I like it that way. But look, when we create a shape layer matte alpha from another, sometimes it generates this line of pixels here, which I really don't like the look of. But I'm going to fix this very easily. I'm going to duplicate this layer called white. And I'm going to deactivate this one down here so it's not visible. Now, here in the scale, I'm going to set it to, for example, 80.2. Notice that you can see the line there. And if I increase it a little more, everything looks much cleaner. The next thing we have to do is the blink animation. We're going to do it with this layer. But notice, if I move this point down, it makes the black part of the eye invisible, but I'm still seeing the white part. So I'm going to select these 2 layers, and here I'm going to type path. And I'm going to parent this layer's path so that they both move at the same time. Look, now it looks perfect. This blinking animation will start right here, where we have the second marker. So we'll mark a keyframe in the path. We're going to move this a little to the right, and without moving from here, we're going to move this point down. We have to hold down the Shift key so it doesn't move sideways. We have to adjust it as much as possible to this point. And don't worry if you see this white line, because since this animation will happen right here, in the transition cut, it won't even be visible. At this point, we move 20 frames forward. And we put this keyframe right there, we smooth it, and give the curve this shape. So the animation starts very fast and ends very slowly. We have to cut these 3 layers here, where the transition will be. And if we want, we can put them down here. We're going to make them all visible again. And obviously, we have to convert these eye layers to 3D so they react to the camera movement. But before converting them to 3D, let's select these 2 and, using the pick whip on the parent link, we'll parent them to this one. That way, if we move this layer, the whole eye moves. Now we can convert them to 3D. And here, at the last keyframe, we select this one and press Ctrl plus Home. I like how the blink animation looks, but the eye animation needs to start much earlier. Maybe around there. Here in the transition, so this empty part doesn't look so good, we can move this eye keyframe one frame to the left if we want. Much better. The eye should be closing around here, transitioning to the next scene. I'm going to go here, mark a keyframe in the path, and now, a little further on, at the 15-second mark, I'm going to copy and paste this keyframe so the eye looks closed. And I'm going to give this curve this shape. Let's preview everything and see how it's going. We're going to animate the stopwatch now. But first, I'm going to make some adjustments to these keyframes because I don't really like how the movement looks. Okay, I need to set this one here to F9. Now it's working. We go to the Compositions folder and create one called Stopwatch, 2000 by 2000 pixels. We leave everything else as is. And with the Ellipse tool selected, we're going to double-click. I'm going to set the scale to 90 and give it this color. But I'm going to remove the stroke. We duplicate the shape and make this one a little smaller. We darken the color a little. We make another copy. We remove the fill from this one and give it a slightly lighter stroke. Okay, so that's about right. Now everyone can take as much time as they need until they get a result they like. With the rectangle tool, I'm going to make a shape like this. I'll center it and remove the stroke and fill it with a fairly dark gray. I'm also going to round the corners a little With the text tool, I'm going to put, for example, a 10 here in an almost white color. And now, to make the stopwatch animation, I'm going to go to Manuel Does Motions channel. And here, where it says Shorts, I'm going to use the magnifying glass to search for countdown. In this short video, they've left an expression in
Hey
the first
everyone,
comment.
in this quick After Effects tutorial, I'll show you how to animate this counter.
I'm going to copy it with Ctrl+C and then go back to After Effects. I'm going to expand source text here. With the Alt key pressed, I'm going to click on the clock. And now with Ctrl+V, I'm going to paste the expression here. And here we have the countdown. But since this composition lasts 10 seconds, let's go into the expression here. And instead of 60, let's put 10. If you want the countdown to go backward, you can leave it like this. And if not, here where this minus sign is, you can put a plus sign. And now it goes forward. I have this text left justified. Because if I center justified it creates this kind of jitter on the sides that I don't really like. So I'm going to left justify it. I'm also going to center the anchor point and center it in view. I'll make it a little bigger and that's it. That's how it's going to stay. I'm going back to the animation composition and I'm going to put the stopwatch layer here below the eye layers. I'm going to expand the keyframes. And right here, when it blinks and closes its eye, this composition is going to start right at this point. We have to convert it to 3D. With Ctrl+Home, we center it. And now I'm going to activate two views to leave this composition at the same Z depth as this layer here. Notice, here we don't have the stopwatch composition, and here we have the other one. We're going to give it the same value. So we expand the position, and here we put 7030. Okay, so that it's right behind the eye. Then here at this point, when the blink animation starts, we're going to select this composition and make it smaller. So that it roughly matches this part of the pupil. I think it's perfect like this. Well, maybe I'll make it smaller so that it matches this part of the eye here. There it is. Look at this cool transition. And so that it doesn't stop abruptly here, we're going to advance to 1905. And here, in this value, we're going to put 1300. If you don't want to complicate things, you can leave all these keyframes as they are. But sometimes there's something I like to do, and that's use the 3 keyframe technique to make animations look much smoother. Let me explain. If the position hasn't changed between this keyframe and this one, it means there's no movement here. So what I'm going to do above this keyframe is increase this value a little, for example, to 5050. And now I'm going to go into the graphics editor. With F9, I'm going to smooth this keyframe again, and I'm going to set the influence of this handle back to what it was at 75. Now, I'm going to double-click on this one and activate the continuous option. This allows me to move these two handles as if they were one. Then I'm going to move it down a little. And notice, before making this modification, when the camera reached this point, it would stop completely, but now it doesn't. Now it slows down very slowly until it reaches this part here, and that makes the camera movements look much smoother. But as I said, if you don't want to complicate things, you can leave the keyframes as they were. This one here, so it doesn't start slowly and gradually picks up speed, I'm going to move it up a little. And in this last one, I'm also going to do the 3 keyframes. I'm going to move this one 7 or 8 frames to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And without moving from here, I'm going to mark another keyframe. Now I'm going to smooth these two with F9 and come back to the graphic editor. I'm going to set the influence on this one to 75. I'm going to activate the continuous option and move it up a little so that instead of the camera stopping when it reaches this point, it keeps moving, but slower and slower. Here in this keyframe, when the eye is already closed, we're going to select these 3 layers and cut them there. Let's preview everything to see how it looks. Okay, this looks great. Here, in this part, when the strokes disappear, what I'm going to do is offset them a little so they don't all move at the same time. For example, I'm going to move this 1, 2, or 3 squares to the right, this one a little bit too, and this one a little bit more. Let's see. Okay, much better. Even though the animation is very fast, it doesn't look like they all move at the same time. And while I'm at it, I'm going to set the stroke thickness to 2 pixels. All right, let's continue. With the ellipse tool, I'm going to make a shape like this, which we'll call big stroke. I'm going to remove the fill from this one and add a stroke of this color with a thickness of 5 pixels. Well, I like it there. We're going to put this one here behind the eye layers, along with the stopwatch composition. We convert it to 3D, Control plus Home, to center it in the viewport, and if this one has a depth of 7030, we'll set it to 7030 here as well. What we're going to do now is adjust it to this black part of the eye. We need to make this ellipse a little bigger. It doesn't need to be perfect. I think it looks great from here, and you can see what a cool transition we're going to make. Okay, perfect. With Control plus D, we duplicate it. This one will be called Small Stroke. We're going to make it a little smaller. I might leave the thickness at 2 pixels. I'm going to go back to the Compositions folder and create another one called Icons. This one will be 500 by 500, and I'm going to leave everything else as is. I'm going to double-click on the Rectangle tool again. I'm going to remove the stroke, and here in the fill, I'm going to add a radial gradient. And here, in the gradient options, you can choose the colors you like best. I'm going to leave it more or less like this. With the text tool, I'm going to write the question mark here. I'm going to make it a fairly dark gray. And I'm going to duplicate this composition twice more, once and twice. Now in Icons 2, I'm going to replace this question mark with another element, for example, this wheel. I'm going to give it a fill effect and the same color as this question mark. And I can leave this one deactivated. Now, in this copy, we're going to replace this question mark with another element. Well, I'm going to delete this one and create a mask for this illustration. Something like this. I'm going to center the anchor point and leave it centered in the viewport. And I'm going to give it the same fill color as this one. We go back to the animation composition, and we're going to bring in this one of the icons first. We place it on top of the small path, convert it to 3D, and with Control Home, center it in the viewport. The Z position also needs to be 7030. So they're all at the same depth. Okay, I'm going to scale it down quite a bit. Around there. And I'm going to put this question mark here at the top of the path. If we press the Control key, it will paste automatically. Now, with PickWhip, we're going to parent it to this layer. Press R and make a copy of the composition. Okay, for now, we'll remove the parent link from this one. And with this parented copy, here in Z rotation, we'll set it to 120. We make another copy, and this one below, we remove the parent link. Now we'll set it to 240, so they end up like this in a sort of triangle. We remove the parent link, expand the rotation. Okay, in this case, we set the orientation to 0 for all of them. Okay, and now we're going to link the 3 of them again to the small stroke. Press R, and here in rotation Z, we're going to write an expression. Press the Alt key and click on the clock. Let's write time by 30 so that the stroke keeps rotating. But as we can see, the question marks are upside down. And what I want is for them to always appear vertical, even though they're linked to the stroke. So let's do the following. For example, in this one, we press the Alt key and click on the Z rotation clock. And with the pick whip, we link it to the stroke's Z rotation. All we have to do now is make this expression negative. Here we set the orientation to 0. Now I have exactly the effect I'm looking for. The stroke is rotating, but this composition is always vertical. Let's right-click on the expression, copy expression only, and paste it into these other two compositions. We expand the rotation and set it to 0. Notice, now all 3 are perfectly aligned. All we have to do is replace them with the different icons, but I'll use the audio to help me with that.
In just a few seconds, they show what they do.
Okay, first, I'm going to apply the trim path effect to this stroke. I'll set this value to 0, and a little later, I'll set it to 100, and I'll smooth these two keyframes with F9.
What they do, how they work, and why they're useful. In just a few seconds, they
Now we need to animate the scale and animation of this stroke according to our audio.
show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful. They show what they do.
For example, we select this composition. Press S, select a keyframe, move back 20 frames, and set it to 0. We smooth these two keyframes and give the curve this shape.
They show what they do. Seconds. They show what they do. They show what they do, how they show what they do. They show what they do, how they work. Show what they do, how they work. Few seconds. They show what they do, how they work. How they
We copy these two keyframes with Ctrl+C,
do, how they
and here, where it says how they work, we paste them.
do, how they work, and what they do, how they work, and and why they're useful. They show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful. They show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful. How they work, and why they're useful. A few seconds, they show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful.
In this part, take your time until you see that the timing of the animations in these compositions matches the audio you're using.
In just a few seconds, they show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful.
Okay, now I'm going to replace the compositions. Here I'm going to add the gear one. With the composition selected and the Alt key pressed, release it on top and it will replace automatically. And here I'm going to add the checkmark or correct symbol. We drag the composition, press the Alt key, and release it on top of this. Perfect.
In just a few seconds, they show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful.
There it is. Now we're going to go to the last keyframe. We duplicate this null, delete all of these, and parent the previous null to the new one. The next camera movement will start at 18:15. We select a keyframe and now advance to 22:15. Now, here on Z, we're going to move the camera backward. We set a value of 5,000, smooth the keyframes, and give the curve this shape. We're going to set the influence to 100% on this one and to 50% on this other one.
They do, how they work, and why they're
useful.
work, and why they're useful. All and why they're useful. All with design.
We go back to the ellipse tool and make a shape like this. And here in the fill, we're going to add a solid color. The color doesn't matter because we're going to use it as a matte alpha. We remove the stroke, center it on the anchor point, and center it in view. This will be called the final matte. We're not going to make it 3D or anything. We'll simply expand the scale. And here at the last keyframe, we'll select 1. At this point, we'll increase the scale until it completely covers the composition. Around there, more or less. Now, on top of this keyframe, we'll set the value to 0. We smooth them and apply the same influence as these two, which was 100 for this one and 50 for this other one.
And why they're useful. All with design. Useful. All with design.
I'm going to cut this layer right there. And all these layers that are no longer visible here, more or less around this area, I'm going to cut them. This one here too.
Know what they do, how they work, and why they're useful. All with design, movement.
Let's preview everything to see what we're missing.
What does SaaS mean? It stands for Software as a Service. Digital tools that you use directly from the internet, without installing anything. SaaS-style animations explain these products clearly and visually. In just a few seconds, they show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful. All with design, movement, and storytelling.
We're going to create a composition for the final scene, the one where a ball appears bouncing at the same time as the text appears. This one will be 1920 by 1080, and we'll leave everything else as is. Here, I'm going to write design, movement, and storytelling, and we need to center this text. With the ellipse tool, I'm going to create a shape like this, which we'll call ball. We need to center its anchor point. And here at the beginning of the timeline, we expand the position options and select a keyframe. Its initial position will be roughly around here. Now we're going to count 30 frames forward. 10, 20, 30. We're going to place this shape here, below the letters E and S, roughly around there. Now we count 24, and we're going to move it to the right. We need to hold down the Shift key so that it moves perfectly horizontally. We're going to leave it here between the E and the M. Now we're going to move 12 frames back to be right between these two, and here we're going to move it upwards. From this keyframe, we count another 24. We place it between the O and the R, move back 12 frames, and raise the shape roughly here. From here, we count 10. And now I'm going to leave it here. We move forward 15 frames, and in this part, I'm going to move the shape down until it's no longer visible in the composition. Around there, more or less. These 3 points up here, we have to convert them to curves. With the Convert Vertex tool, we click on each of them. And on this one as well. What we have to try to do now is move these handles so that the arc the ball describes as it bounces looks like this. I mean that it looks organic. Okay, I like it that way. We smooth all these keyframes with F9. Now we have the basis of the movement. Obviously, we have to continue making some adjustments because it doesn't look very good right now. Here, when the ball starts to fall, it comes in slowly and gradually gains speed. When the ball is at its highest point, it's going the slowest. So we're going to set the influence of these handles to 100%. Here in this section, we'll do the same. We'll set this one to 100, and this other one as well. The same as in this section. 100 and 100. And we'll also move this last one all the way to the right. To make the ball bounce with more force, we'll set the influence of these handles to 10%. Notice, now the ball bounces with much more force. We'll do the same with these two. Double-click and set them to 10 and 10. Double-click and set their influence to 10% as well. Now we need to fix the part where the ball is at the top and gets stuck there. That's because the entry and exit speeds are 0. This means that when it reaches this point, it starts from 0. So we're going to do the following. Double-click, lock the continuous checkbox, and move these two a little bit upwards. And now, notice the difference. Okay, now it looks much better. As we always do, we're going to set the exact values. Let's leave it at 400, for example. Here too, so the ball doesn't stay still, we activate the continuous option and set the entry and exit speeds to 400. In this last one, we do the same. Lock it and set it to 400. Let's see how it looks. So, the ball's movement is ready. It really does look very realistic. Now we have to animate the text. We need to separate each word into a different layer. I already told you at the beginning how to do it manually, but I'm going to use the text exploder script again. I'm going to click Apply, and that's it. We now have the 3 words separated into different layers. If we want, we can close it now. And now we're going to move slowly along the timeline with the arrow keys. 1 frame before the ball appears over this word, we're going to mark a keyframe at that position. And in the next one, we're going to move this word down. We need to hold down the Shift key. We move forward 1 frame and go down again around here. And now, when the ball starts to rise, we're going to count 6 forwards. We select the first one, copy it, and paste it, and we smooth this last keyframe with F9. This first word shouldn't be visible in this part. It's going to be visible right when the ball bounces on top of it. So we're going to cut it right at that point. Okay, perfect. We're going to do the same thing with this. We move with the arrow keys, and 1 frame before the ball bounces, we mark a keyframe in position. We move forward one frame and move this word down. We move forward another one and keep moving. When the ball starts to rise, we're going to count 6 forwards. The same process as before. We copy and paste this keyframe, and we smooth this last one with F9. And we have to cut the layer right here. At this point, we mark a keyframe, move forward one frame, and move this word down. We move forward another one and keep moving. And now we're going to count 6 forwards. We copy and paste the first keyframe, smooth it, and cut the layer right here. Let's see how this looks. Okay, it doesn't look bad. But now we're going to add an expression to give it even more flow. Every time I use the bounce expression, I come to the cinecom.net website. And look, here it is. We select it, right-click, copy, and go back to After Effects. And now we're going to paste it onto the 3 text layers. We press the Alt key and click on the clock, then Control plus V. Here, the same, Control plus V, and the same here. And now notice the difference. If you wanted to modify any point, you would just have to move these handles, and that's it. Now we're going to activate motion blur on all the layers, and for now I'm going to paint the ball black. Then, when I review the entire animation, I'll add the appropriate colors. If we want, we can close this one now. We'll save it in its folder and bring it here into the animation composition. We need to convert it to 3D, and here at the last keyframe, we'll center it in view using Control plus Home. But I'm going to reduce the scale quite a bit. I'll set it to, for example, 55. Now we need to make this composition a matte alpha of the shape. And make it visible again. Notice that you can't see the ball descending completely here. So let's go into the composition, and in the settings, we'll set it to, for example, 2500. And in this last keyframe, we'll move the ball down. Now you can see the entire path of the ball perfectly. Okay, this looks great. I'm going to look at it now with the audio.
Useful. All with design, move.
I'm going to cut this space here. Let's see.
Work, and why they're useful. All with design, movement, and storytelling. Work, and why they're useful. All with design, movement, and storytelling. This is What does SaaS mean? It stands for Software as a Service. Digital tools that you use directly from the internet, without installing anything. SaaS-style animations explain these products clearly and visually. In just a few seconds, they show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful, all with design, movement, and storytelling. What does SaaS mean? It stands for
Okay, this looks great. The next thing we're going to do is correct all the colors in our animation to give it a super professional look. We'll make some color adjustments and a couple of effects, and then we'll have finished our animation. Here on the background layer, we're going to add the effect called 4-color gradient. I'm going to use these colors, but you can use whatever you like. With Ctrl+C, I'm going to copy this code and paste it onto this blue layer as well. I'm going to paint these two completely black. Now I'm going to put this handle up here and move this one down as well so the gradient looks very subtle. To soften these harsh, defined lines left by the gradients, known as banding, we can add a solid color on top of this layer with a color between white and black. We'll set the brightness here to 50, and that's it. Now we're going to add the add grain effect. Here we select Final Output, and of all these presets, you can try them out to see which one you like best. I'm going to use this one, with a slightly lower intensity, 0.5, and I'm going to set the size to 0.7. Monochromatic color and animation at 0, so the noise is static. Now we're going to put this solid in overlay mode. And this way, the gradient is much smoother. What I'm going to do is copy this color, because I'm going to use it later. For example, Here at the beginning in this phrase, I'm going to select these 4 letters and give them the same color as well. These ones here too. Let's see if these are the ones. Okay, perfect. With Control plus V, we paste the same color. And this one here too. This S, the A, S2, and A2, Control plus V. I'm also going to make this shape the same color. I'm going to go into this composition and this pink color bar. I'm also going to give it the same color. This text too, although, well, maybe I'll make this one a little darker. A tiny bit less. This interface, what I'm going to do is right-click to pre-compose it, and I'm going to leave all the attributes in the animation composition. The color the same, this blue. And to this interface, we're going to add a few effects. The first one is called Deep Glow. This is a paid plugin, but if you don't have it installed, you can use the glow that comes by default with After Effects. Here in the exposure, we're going to set it to 0.01. And so that it doesn't look cut off here, we're going to go into the composition and make this 2500 by 2500. Everything else stays as it is. And now it looks perfect. You can't see any cut in the glow anymore. What I'm also going to do is flip it horizontally, because this eye is supposed to be looking at this interface head-on. Now I'm going to apply the one called Fast Box Blur. And here I'm going to set the blur to 3. The next effect is called Optics Compensation. And here I'm going to set it to 60. One more effect. This one is called Venetian Blinds. We're going to set the degrees to 90. In this percentage, we're going to set the value to 10. And now in width, we're going to set it to 5. This gives the impression that this eye is looking at a screen. We're going to put this composition in Add mode. And now, we're going to come here, to this background layer. With Control plus C, we copy this gradient and paste it here. We're also going to paste it here, but we're going to make the black colors completely white. That way we have this really cool gradient in the corners. I'm also going to make these 2 strokes blue. And now I'm going to go into the stopwatch composition. This one is blue, this one too, but a little darker. Around there, more or less. I'm also going to make this stroke the same blue color, but I'm going to lower the saturation quite a bit. And, well, I think that should do the trick. Take your time here until you feel that the colors in this animated sequence all belong to the same animation. I'm also going to make the gradients of these shapes blue. Well, just this part. I'm going to leave this color white. For these last text layers, I'm going to copy this color. Control+C. I'll come back to this animation and apply the same color to all these texts. Control+V. We'll make a copy of this gradient. We'll put it right here, which is where the last scene begins. And we need to make this layer the alpha matte of this shape, which is called final matte. So we select it, and with the pick whip tool, we parent it to this layer, the one called final matte. But we have to turn off the eye effect on this one. Perfect. Now, you see the same gradient in this final scene as in this part here. And that way, the whole thing has much more visual coherence. Now, with a right click, we're going to create an adjustment layer and apply a couple of effects to it. The first one is called Deep Glow. And here we'll set the exposure to 0.01. Now we're going to add some curves to give it a little contrast. Here in the blue channel, we're also going to move this handle up a little. I think that might work. I'm going to close all these compositions now. And now, starting with the animation composition, I'm going to create another one. This one will be called, for example, Animation Blur Transition. Now we're going to go here, to this marker, which is right where we made the transition from one scene to another. With a right click, we're going to create an adjustment layer and apply the Fastbox blur effect to it. Here we'll set a value of 25 and select a keyframe. Press the U key and move 6 frames back. Here we set the value to 0. And while here, we move 10 frames forward. Here we'll also set it to 0. We'll smooth these two with F9. Now we're going to cut this adjustment layer right here, where the keyframes are. And this transition blur will give it a really cool effect.
Explain these products clearly and visually. Explain these products clearly.
Finally, we can go into this composition and activate motion blur on all layers. The nulls and these solids aren't necessary, but oh well, it's not a big deal.
What does SaaS mean? It stands for Software as a Service. Digital tools that you use directly from the internet, without installing anything. SaaS-style animations explain these products clearly and visually. In just a few seconds, they show what they do, how they work, and why they're useful, all with design, movement.
Look here, we're still seeing the previous scene. So what I'm going to do is bring this background layer up to the top with its own layers. Let's see if I can do it right. And now,
What does
we have the
SaaS mean?
finished animation,
It stands for
working
Software as a
perfectly and with a
Service.
very professional
Digital
result.
tools that
If you got
use
stuck at any
directly from
step
the
or
internet,
there's something you don't
without
understand,
installing anything.
write to me in the comments and
SaaS-style
we'll sort it out.
animations explain these
And if you
products
like the
clearly
tutorial,
and visually.
leave a like so I
In
know.
just a few seconds,
See you in the
they
next
show
video.
what they do, how they work, and why they're useful, all with design, movement, and storytelling.